I caught someone on my porch at 2 a.m., unscrewing the flag I brought home from the Marines. When I checked the footage, it wasn't a stranger. It was our HOA president with a clipboard. The morning that started it all was so painfully ordinary, it almost makes the memory sting. The kind of quiet suburban calm that belongs in a brochure, lawns trimmed within regulation length, mailboxes painted in the same HOA-approved shade of beige, and neighbors who smile just enough to look friendly, but not enough to invite conversation. That morning, there was just one thing that stood out: a white envelope taped crookedly to my front door. My name, handwritten. No stamp, no postmark. Inside, a printed letter with the sharp, cold tone only an HOA notice can manage. Dear Mr. Walker, you are in violation of Regulation 14B, unauthorized display of exterior items. Remove the flag from your porch within 5 days or face fines and further action. My flag. The American flag I'd flown since I moved in 2 years earlier. The same flag folded in my hands when I was honorably discharged after 22 years in the Marines. If stories like this make your blood boil and part of you enjoy seeing justice served, go ahead and subscribe. That way you won't miss the next time someone thinks they can bend the rules and gets caught on camera. At first, I thought there had to be a mistake. Every house on my block had something hanging out front. Team banners, planters, even an inflatable holiday flamingo that had somehow survived 3 seasons. But a flag was apparently unauthorized. I took the letter to the next HOA meeting, more curious than angry. The fluorescent lights buzzed over a half-circle of folding tables where the board sat, and at the center, presiding with the pomp of a small-town dictator, was Harold Jennings, the HOA president. Harold had a face that always looked like it was smelling something sour. He flipped through his clipboard as I spoke. Regulation 14B clearly states only seasonal or association-approved flags may be displayed, he said, not bothering to look up. It's the national flag, I said evenly. That's about as approved as it gets. Harold finally looked up, that thin smile stretching across his face. Rules are rules, Mr. Walker. If we make an exception for one, we make an exception for all. I tried reason. I tried humor. None of it stuck. Harold dismissed me like I was a child asking for an extra cookie before dinner. Walking home, the anger was slow and deliberate, the way embers turn logs to coal. I'd kept to myself since moving here. Retired Marine, older widower, the kind of neighbor who waves but doesn't pry. Maybe that made me an easy target. The next morning, my flag was gone. Not folded or set aside, gone. Just the 2 bracket holes on the porch column. That's when the story stopped being an annoyance and became a mission. I reviewed my doorbell camera footage. The image was grainy under the porch light, but there he was, the unmistakable silhouette of Harold, clipboard under one arm, unscrewing my flag mount in the middle of the night. So I printed the frame, zoomed in, time-stamped it. Evidence, then I reread the HOA bylaws. I downloaded the entire PDF, every page of small print bureaucracy. Hand-buried in subsection 14B, right under the rule about flags, was the line Harold never mentioned. National colors may be displayed in accordance with Federal Code Title 4, Chapter 1. He wasn't just wrong. He'd broken his own rule. That's when I knew this wasn't about a flag. It was about control. I started noticing patterns. Neighbors with quiet complaints, yard fines, fence disputes, parking tickets, always traced back to Harold's clipboard. One woman down the street, Lucinda, whispered, "He fined me for a wreath that was too religious." So I began documenting everything. Dates, memos, emails Harold sent claiming unanimous board decisions that weren't actually unanimous. You can take a man out of the Marines, but you don't take the discipline out with him. Each night, I built my case like a field report, photos, footage, cross-references. When I sent a notice to the HOA citing Title 4, I got no reply except another letter taped to my door. Continued defiance will result in legal escalation. Defiance. That made me smile. He thought this was a turf war. He didn't yet know he was standing on my field. The next phase wasn't going to be a complaint. It was going to be a recon mission. By the time the weekend rolled around, I was running my own quiet investigation from the comfort of my garage, part command center, part coffee shrine. I had my laptop open to a spreadsheet labeled Operation Free Flag. It wasn't just about catching Harold anymore. It was about exposing the rot in the system he ran like a fiefdom. Step 1. Surveillance. My doorbell cam gave me only a taste of his nighttime activities, so I added a small motion-triggered camera to the flower bed, angled toward the sidewalk. Then I tucked an old GPS tracker the size of a mint tin under the HOA's maintenance golf cart. which Harold drove, like it was his personal chariot. Call it overkill, but he'd crossed a line. And Marines know something about lines. Within days, the camera footage painted a clear picture. Harold wasn't just enforcing rules, he was weaponizing them. He'd stop to measure grass height, circle properties with a little digital recorder, and take photos of things that couldn't possibly violate code. But one clip stood out. Him meeting behind the clubhouse dumpster with a local contractor, smiling, shaking hands, exchanging envelopes, a restricted vendor kickback scheme. The HOA bylaws I'd downloaded had a clause, Section 19A, that required open bidding for all maintenance work. I now had footage suggesting Harold was handpicking companies in exchange for cash. He wasn't protecting property values, he was padding his own purse. Still, running headfirst at him would be reckless. So I called in an ally, Linda Perez, a retired real estate attorney who'd been fined last summer for painting her mailbox the wrong beige. She'd laughed when I told her the plan. "You really want to take Harold down?" she said, stirring her tea. "You'll need receipts, emails, signed invoices, testimony. Board minutes can be powerful evidence." She handed me a flash drive. I served as board secretary before Harold twisted everything. I kept backups. Between her files and my footage, the picture got darker. Harold hadn't just misused funds. He'd falsified meeting votes. Half the proposed regulations had never actually passed. He typed them up himself after meetings and filed them as approved. When the dots finally connected, I realized one specific clause, the flag one, was added after the meeting where it should have been discussed. No vote, no record, just Harold's handiwork. The deeper I dug, the more personal it got. One night, scrolling through those files, I found something chilling. Harold's email to another board member. Walker's one of those ex-military types. "Thanks rules don't apply if he waves the flag hard enough. Let's show him who's in charge." So it wasn't just about me, it was targeted. He'd made it personal. And there's something Harold never knew about me. I don't believe in half measures. I reached out to the county's HOA compliance liaison, a deputy named Mark Danner, who doubled as a retired cop. We'd worked together years ago when I helped train officers on crisis procedures. He remembered me immediately. When I told him what I had, his voice sharpened. "You've got enough to trigger a county audit if you're right, but official channels move like molasses. You sure you want to go that route?" "Not exactly," I said. "I was thinking of something more educational," he chuckled. "Are you planning a sting?" "Think of it as a demonstration of accountability," I said. The setup took a week. With Mark's help, we arranged a county inspector's unannounced safety audit at the HOA office. On the same morning, Harold scheduled the next neighborhood meeting. Cameras, microphones, witnesses, everything ready to go. Linda prepared a binder of evidence labeled unauthorized amendments and fraudulent enforcement. I printed stills of the kickback footage, circled the timestamp in red like an old crime scene analyst. Then I added one final page, the photo of him stealing my flag. It seemed poetic, really. The act that started this whole thing would end up being the nail in his professional coffin. But before we brought it public, I wanted to know who Harold really was. Why someone so obsessed with rules would risk criminal exposure over a neighborhood association. A quick background check revealed it. Harold had been discharged from the National Guard, other than honorable conditions, for falsifying training records. Expelled for lying, not leading. So now it made sense. The clipboard was his shield, the HOA his redemption fantasy. He couldn't command soldiers anymore, so he commanded neighbors. He took my symbol, our flag, and turned it into a personal vendetta. The next meeting would be his last. And for the first time in a long while, I felt the kind of anticipation that soldiers feel before stepping into a fight. They know they'll win. When the day finally arrived, the clubhouse parking lot was full. Residents chatted under the autumn sun, holding copies of the anonymous flyers Linda had printed. Important HOA transparency meeting tonight. Inside, the chairs were lined, the microphones ready. Harold walked in, puffing his chest like a rooster, clipboard tucked under his arm as always. He didn't know that every camera phone in that room was about to capture his undoing. Harold called the meeting to order like it was a courtroom. He banged his gavel twice, straightened his tie and cleared his throat with all the gravitas of a man convinced he was untouchable. Rows of folding chairs faced him. Half the neighborhood had shown up, buzzing with curiosity and a hint of rebellion. He started with his usual preamble. The Board of Homeowners Associations exists to preserve order, aesthetics and fair treatment. The words droned on like an old cassette player stuck on repeat. Meanwhile, I sat in the second row, binder on my lap, waiting for my cue. The county inspector, Mark, was standing near the back wearing a jacket that disguised his badge. Linda whispered beside me, "He doesn't see it coming." Harold's monologue shifted to the ongoing matter of my flag violation. "We've had issues with residents disregarding uniform display standards," he said, eyes flicking in my direction. "This disruption undermines community cohesion." That was my signal. I stood. "You mean the United States flag that every homeowner has the legal right to display, under both federal code and your own bylaws?" The room stirred. Harold's jaw tensed, but he tried for that patronizing smile. "Mr. Walker, please wait your turn." "Funny," I said, lifting the binder. "You didn't wait your turn to rewrite HOA rules." Gasps spread across the rows as I clicked the binder open. The projector screen flickered to life behind Harold. Image number 1. The video still of him removing my flag. "This footage," I said, "was recorded at 2:17 a.m. last Thursday. President Jennings trespassing on private property, confiscating an item he had no authority to remove." Harold dropped his clipboard, stammering, "That's out of context." Image number 2 appeared. Harold's midnight handshake behind the dumpster with the contractor. Mark's voice rang out from the back. "Sir, as county inspector, I'm opening an immediate investigation into HOA financial practices related to vendor contracting. Please remain available." The room erupted into murmurs. Neighbors turned in their seats, whispers snapping through the air like static. Harold's smug order dissolved in seconds. I flipped another page. "Here's the kicker," I said. "Section 14B, the one you cited against me, was never voted on. According to the board minutes obtained by former Secretary Linda Perez, that amendment doesn't exist in any legitimate record." Linda stood, holding up her flash drive like an Olympic torch. "Every vote since last spring was faked," she said. "You've been running this board like a one-man dictatorship. For a long, terrible moment." Harold just stared, mouth slightly open, hand trembling against the table. "All that power leveled in a single slideshow." "Mr. Walker," he muttered finally, "I was only enforcing what I thought was—" I stepped forward, slow and steady. "You weren't enforcing anything, Harold. You were compensating. You turned neighbors into subordinates. And worst of all, you disrespected the very symbol of the country that gives you the right to hold that clipboard." The tension broke like a snapped wire. Someone clapped. Then another. Soon half the room was applauding. Mark approached the front and quietly informed Harold of the county's intent to audit accounts and records. Harold's face turned the color of wet clay. He tried to gather his papers, but they slipped from his fingers and scattered across the floor. As he stooped to pick them up, I reached into a folder and pulled out a small folded cloth, the same flag he'd taken. I'd recovered it from the HOA storage locker the night before, after finding his spare key still under the office mat. He looked up as I unfolded it. "You should have just knocked, Harold," I said. "I would have told you where this flag has been." The room quieted again. I held it up. Fallujah, Helmand Province, 2 tours in the Pacific, and now apparently the suburbs of Millbrook County. Laughter rippled through the room, followed by a low cheer. I walked to the flagpole outside the clubhouse. Cameras followed. I reattached the flag, clipping it into place with the same slow precision I'd learned years ago. As I did, the wind caught it and sent it snapping in the afternoon light. When I turned back, Harold was gone, his clipboard left behind on the table like a relic from a toppled empire. By the end of the month, a new HOA board was elected. Transparency budgets, online voting records, open access to rule updates, things that had never existed before. The flag rule was erased permanently. Mark's investigation confirmed what we suspected. Harold had funneled nearly $10,000 in vendor fees into personal accounts. He took a plea deal, community service included. Irony intended. The best twist came a week later, though. I was checking mail when a quiet knock sounded. It was Harold's eldest son, mid-30s, clean-cut, posture unmistakably military. He looked me in the eye and said, "My father told me what happened." "I served in Afghanistan." "He said you told him who you are," I nodded. "We've all fought our own wars." He smiled, small but genuine. "He learned humility from you, apparently the hard way." As he walked away, I watched the flag on my porch catch another gust of wind. It snapped once, proudly alive. I thought about all the people who'd ever been bullied by power disguised as rules, and how sometimes the loudest act of rebellion is simple decency backed by evidence. That night, I replaced the porch light bulb, straightened the flag bracket, and poured one last cup of coffee. My neighborhood was quiet again, but this time not because of fear. It was the calm that followed a righteous storm.